Hello, this is Gary Scarano from the Underdog Report. That's right, the Underdog Report. And we are hosted every week on joehoff.com. But you can reach us at underdogreport.com. And here we are with our first podcast. We've been doing a lot of YouTube shorts, but now we're doing a long podcast. And I want to introduce someone who's with me today, and her name is Terri. And we're going to be talking about the awakening of a Hollywood liberal. That doesn't happen often, and I think it's pretty significant. I'm pretty excited to talk to Terri about how this happened. Before we start, Terri, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm third generation Californian, actually third generation Angeleno. I grew up in Los Angeles. I was trained in college in the entertainment industry, and I worked in the entertainment industry for a long time. Grew up with a feminist mom and sort of didn't understand that there was anything else outside of a certain mindset. And it wasn't until I started working more in the entertainment business, I kind of saw what was happening with children in entertainment. We lived in Silver Lake. I lived in the Hollywood Hills. I also lived in Santa Monica. I worked in the casting industry. I've worked with, and when I say all of this, like everybody that I worked with one-on-one was pretty wonderful. It's just sort of the system around it that started to really, I guess, weigh on me a little bit. But yeah, had the little cute pink Mediterranean house on the hill in Silver Lake, and
Nice.
married an artist and was working on film, TV. I've worked on hundreds and hundreds of commercials, met so many kinds of people. I really started to take off pretty quickly once I got into a certain group of people.
That's great.
Yeah, it was fun. But there were a couple things I started to notice that didn't resonate with me. And one is this whole idea of feminism. And the second was family. And I noticed that there was a huge gap between women that worked in the industry and family. And also women helping other women in the industry and family. It was mostly just get a nanny was the idea. Group of really great, strong women, but everyone was raising their children with nannies, which is fine if that's what you want to do. It's just not something I wanted to do. Being raised by a single woman during the height of feminism in the 80s, it did not serve me growing up. And I just didn't want to repeat that pattern with my own kids. And not to saying that I had a bad parenting or anything like that. I just didn't want to do the same thing. It was just a choice I was making. And that was not considered, bourgeois.
Did you have some pushback from your friends and your clients and people the fact that
I had no support. What? None. There was no support. None.
Well, there's support, and there's actually people against it. The people actually say that you were making a mistake or you were making a wrong move.
Yeah, I was making a mistake. I had friends distance themselves from me.
Wait, you had friends distance themselves from you because you wanted to take care of your daughter, because they figured, oh, you're not serious in this career, so I'm going to discount you. Was that how the logic?
Yeah, because that's where your value is what you can bring to other people's careers and their social circle that is how Hollywood is. So me not participating in that, I was basically saying, no, thank you to them. And not everybody, but a giant percentage of women really were looked down on me for making that choice.
I'm from New York. New York and LA is very similar.
New York's the same way.
Who do you know? Where do you work? Where do you live? And with those three questions, they have you in a box.
Yeah, so that's it.
You were in a box. You were in a box. You checked all the boxes. You were in the group, and because you wanted to raise your children yourself, you started to get pushed out to a certain extent. What happened from there?
Oh, it was pushed out, but it was also, there was these strange experiences started to happen. For example, I'll just take the preschool. I actually wrote an article on this, like, why do Americans hate children?
I want to see that article.
Trying to get my son into a preschool in Silver Lake. And I
By the
started,
way, I used to live in Silver Lake, New York, by the way.
oh, that's funny.
Isn't
I
that
didn't
funny?
know there was a Silver Lake, New York.
There is.
But Silver Lake is just, they don't think they're living in a bubble, but the bubble is so it's easy to pop. So anyway, I had trouble getting my son into preschool. We were on the wrong side of the mountain in Silver Lake. So also his schooling option was deeply limited in the public sector of schooling. But we were surrounded by private schools too that we were starting to tour and look at. But getting even a little tiny boy into a preschool was bananas. It was this complete competition, who you knew, people getting bumped from lists, people buying themselves movements on the lists. I mean, this is from the compassionate class. And I started to see a huge discrepancy between what they were saying they wanted politically and then how they behaved one-on-one.
Interesting.
That started to really bother me. And it's not, listen, I'm not.
In other words, they were saying politically they wanted fairness. You know,
Right.
they wanted people to be represented, but in their personal life, their money spoke what they really want. They wanted to be elite.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Yes.
Interesting. So that had some interesting effects on you. So that was the first wave of you kind of opening your eyes, the awakening, I guess. What happened from there?
So from there, I had a second son, and I was talking to my husband about this the other day. I go, do you remember when we had the second son? And I had literally somebody say to me, I read an article, I think in, I don't know, it was really liberal. What was I reading? I must have been, I don't know, The Guardian or something, how one child is an accessory and two is a commitment, was this idea. And it really was sort of like that in Hollywood, where you had one kid and then they just sort of fit into your life. But what I started to realize with the family that I wanted and the kind of values that we had, for us, it was family first. I mean, of course it was the career, but it was family first. And my husband was so supportive in all of that. I really wanted to be hands-on with my kids. I love my kids. I love being a mom. It was really hard because I didn't have a lot to pull from. As an example, my mother was great.
So you have two kids now.
I have two kids, right?
And now you're beginning to get divorced even more from the quote you term bubble, right?
Yes.
Now you have two kids and they're growing up. What happened from there?
We decided to leave the city because of the schooling problem. So we left the city and we moved to the suburbs. We moved to actually a really rural area. We got a couple of acres and a big house, and they had a guest house, and my husband could have a studio to do his work. And it was just really great.
Wow.
And we did that. And as I was leaving and having my little going away parties, people were saying to me, oh, you're going to turn into a conservative now, or you're going to be this now, or I'll never drive out there. I mean, they've been having some really strange friendship. When I started to realize, like, people are really weird. Why would you say that to me?
In other words, was their friendship based upon your political view? In other words, if you had a political view that didn't agree with theirs, you couldn't be their friend?
I now look back on it, and yeah, it was that, and it was status.
Okay.
So it was status, and that's, again, that's fine if that's what you're doing, but you have to know what you're getting into. And I think I was a little naive, and I didn't really understand that my value is only based on that. It wasn't based on being a good parent. It wasn't based on making sound financial choices. It was really based on kind of what my husband was doing and what I was doing for a living and who we knew. So having said that, when we moved to a rural area, we were sort of big fish in a little pond, which was also very strange. It was a really strange experience too. But I was watching the educational sector and so I call it zip code discrimination, what the left does to public education. So we ended up putting our sons into a charter school. This is another level of just the craziness that it's not mentally consistent. And if you confront them on it, that was the problem I was having. Like, you want you say you want everyone to have a fair chance, but you literally endorse zip code discrimination. So, their real estate is going up, their equity is going up, and the school district is really great. So they're participating in that, yet they don't see how their policies are creating the discrimination. And I was trying to explain to them, you don't get to have this public schooling success without the discrimination that you're endorsing. And so we ended up pulling out of the public school system for a while. We did some homeschool, which was also looked down on. We did the independent study, all of it. I was starting to be called names like a right-wing extremist.
But you were nowhere near that at this point.
No, I was voting Democrat.
But there was a significant event that really pushed you over the edge. You told me. Let's go to that. What was that event?
Well, this is the Hep B vaccine. So the Hep B vaccine is when you're a baby, you get that vaccine. So he'd always displayed some quirks here and there. We just thought it was young boy stuff, but they really started to become more obvious around fourth grade. And I realized he had a pretty severe neurological problem. When I started to do research on it, I went to my wealthier friends, liberal friends who had connections, because you had to have connections to get the right doctor, right? You can't, the equality they speak of, they do not participate in, right? So it's almost like they want to police themselves. It's a very strange psychological condition, I think, that they're under, and now that I have some distance from it. But anyway, my friends pulled some strings. I got to see some really great doctors. We ended up flying up to the Mayo Clinic and saw one of the best neurologists at the Mayo Clinic who couldn't tell me anything. There was nothing wrong with him. But when I started to do a deeper dive on the side effects of the different vaccines that my son had, these were all the symptoms. So what I started to do is more research around that. And then I started to bring it up to friends and family. And I soon started to be called a right-wing extremist, an anti-vaxxer, even though he was vaccinated. Okay. They really lost the plot. But then I learned about informed consent. I didn't even know what informed consent is, but that was based on the Nuremberg trials at The Hague, right? We set up a medical moral compass years and years, decades and decades ago, that you cannot give somebody, or you can't force somebody to take anything without informed consent. And that's the law. That's the baseline of health. So every doctor that gives you something has to give you the side effects. And they don't do it. Pediatricians don't do it. So had I known these 5 things could possibly happen to your baby if you do this, I never would have done it. So I didn't have informed consent. I missed the window to file for vaccine injury and the vaccine court on a federal level. So we couldn't do that. So I'm left trying to piece this together while I'm being called names. And it's like falling on the ground and having people kick dust in your face. So that's when my faith sort of deepened. I was telling my girlfriend this morning, I said, nothing did me a better service than being hated by my fellows, because humans are fallible. They're so fallible, but the God in my life is not. And so I was just given a lot of courage, thank God. And I started doing a deep dive on what other parents were doing to help their children. And I started implementing all of these things.
So some of these people got ridiculously aggressive. So some things happened to you that were pretty bad. What did you tell me there was one thing that actually happened to you?
This was a protest in Los Angeles where parents of vaccine-injured kids went to a Pink Hats protest to appeal to the governor's wife, Jennifer. And all the women there, all these women in power in California, we were saying, hey, we need help here. And we were spit on by liberal protesters. Other people there, they were just calling everyone names, anti-vaxxers, extremists. They were so hateful and spiteful. So I sort of realized then that I was in a situation that had no solution. Like there's no solution. You can't reason with irrational hate. There's no reason.
So where do we take it from here? So now
I got my son, we got him better. And he, what a lesson for him to watch all of that stuff go down too. So he's definitely a very strong person. So,
But you're not in Hollywood Hills anymore. What happened?
no. Well, I had left the entertainment business and I got into real estate. I was doing really well with that, and I didn't have to worry about, I could speak out. The benefit for me is I've been able to speak out because I don't have a visible job. I don't have a corporation that's going to fire me because I don't A, B, and C. So I was very successful for about 7 or 8 years. We went all in on a bunch of real estate. We had a lot of fun, design. We would fix and flip. I've had Airbnbs, just a lot of fun doing that for years. Really focused on getting my son better, but then California passed SB 276 and SB 277. So SB 276 and SB 277 made it illegal for my children to attend public school without their qualified vaccine schedule.
Okay,
So
I didn't know that.
it inserted statism on a medical level into California, because basically California is now under a medical police state with vaccines, and they allowed that to happen. The liberals allowed that to happen. So, and here's the great irony. This is another level, is that all of these wealthy parents, they don't vaccinate their kids, and they're sending them to the private schools in Los Angeles and San Francisco, Northern California, all over the place, San Diego. But they just lie. They just make up the fake vaccine cards. They turn them in. And I'm sort of blowing them up a little bit, but they can afford to do that, right? They can get the lawyers, they can get the connections, but California started to see that, and they started punishing the California doctors. So it's just a really horrible situation. I've had 2 people in the last 2 days coming to me saying, what can I do to get my kid out of this in California? And I said, nothing. There's nothing you can do. You have to move if you don't want your kid to be.
And that's what you did, didn't you?
I did. I moved to Texas. Yeah.
When was that? When was that?
That was last summer.
So you moved to Texas because you needed to. You were awakening as a liberal. You were seeing that your point of view wasn't working with the laws, with the bubble, with the people.
Not at all.
And you had to get out. And your husband, thank God, and your children went along with it.
Here's the thing: is there are so many parents here that left California for the same reason. So that's my bubble. But before I left,
now when they left, have they left? You changed your political affiliation. Have these other people left, or have they changed their political affiliation?
Of course they have.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't. Of course they have. Yeah, and they're true. I think they're actually. If you peel back the curtain a little bit, you can see how they're still fundamentally liberal, or they see themselves as more libertarian, which is just really live and let live. Like, just leave everybody alone. What are we doing here that we can't be ourselves? The only people that are in jeopardy of getting hurt around the vaccine issue are the people not taking the vaccines. If you're vaccinated, just chill out for a second. You're vaccinated. Like, if that makes you feel safe, that's great. I would never stop somebody from getting vaccinated. But knowing what I know now, so I ended up, when I was still in California, I started writing a lot about this stuff on Facebook, on social media, because I was really sick and tired of being bullied. And so I just came straight out with it. And I lost a lot. I lost a lot of friendships. I lost a lot of connections. We were alienated. We've been alienated by the entertainment industry, and that's fine with me. At this point, it's just my sanity and health is way more important than anyone's approval at this point. So
it's so funny. There's a law that says that, in the United States, you can't be fired or you can't make hiring decision based upon somebody's political point of view, but that's not true in the entertainment.
No, it's not true. It used to be better. I remember working with Republicans and Democrats. I remember people fighting over, but they were still like, okay, let's go get a burger afterward. You could have the discussion and the disagreement and still love each other. I have wonderful family members that are conservative. And I just, I listened. I started listening. And that was really, so what happened in California though, is I started to write. I was putting stuff on social media. A songwriter, really well-known songwriter, saw my post, and she said, Terri, you have something here. I want you to submit your writing to Children's Health Defense, which was Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at the time. And so I started writing. I got a couple things published. And then I went and worked for an offshoot of that, Children's Health Defense California. I went and worked with Alex Mayer of Oscar Mayer, Free Now Foundation, and I just finished working there. And of course, I'm working with the National Health Federation on a federal level. I've been with them for almost a year and a half, and that's been so wonderful for me to be connecting with so many like-minded people around the country and working with lobbyists. If you would have told me 4 years ago I would be communicating with Ted Cruz's office, I would have laughed hysterically. But I am. I'm talking to everybody. And there's no one for me, unless you have personally harmed me and we have a problem, I'm trying to build a bridge. We have become so afraid and cruel that I just don't, I know the world I want to live in. And I am enjoying so much meeting so many new people that are on the same path that I'm on right now. It doesn't matter to me why you're doing it. I'm just happy to meet you on the road at this point and share with, my goal right now is to just really recognize, like for the Olympics thing that just happened with the opening, I did a video, like, of course, they are antagonizing the Christians. They completely gaslit the Christians. It's psychological warfare. They poked the bear got angry, and then they pointed their fingers at the angry bear instead of at their own behavior. I watched it happen. They're acting like children. And it was, anybody can see it. And I thought it was so offensive. Like, why do this? What's the point? Other than to be antagonistic. Why? No one's hurting you. You have this stage. You spent all this time creating. This is what you wanted to create, Paris, and this is what you brought to the world. Okay.
So I want to close it up here, Terri. Hollywood liberal. Some personal things happened with your children.
Yeah.
Kind of got pushed out.
Yeah.
Tried to do something politically, got spit on. Your son got vaccine injured.
Mm-hmm.
And you just had to leave. You're now in Texas. You self-identify as a conservative, amazingly so. I just want to hear, what advice would you have for liberals out there?
Well, I'll say the advice that I just gave one of my girlfriends this morning is just be really careful about how they're trying to make you hate people. It's your hate that they're stoking. Truly, if someone is trying to be a liberal, they're coming from love and creativity, and most people have really good hearts, but they have harnessed this they've been propagandized, and hate has been harnessed in the liberal party, that it's really dangerous. And I would just be really careful about how you're nurturing that in your own mind and your own body, and how you're judging people. And don't forget, your bread is buttered by a lot of people, and not all of them are liberal. So, those are facts. The creative people forget sometimes that you're selling tickets to the Midwest, and not just, California or New York. Stop both sides.
We know that certain boycotts have been successful recently.
Yes.
And the conservatives have got to be consistent with that. They have to speak with their wallet.
Yeah, the Netflix thing was really funny.
Tell me about that. What was that?
So Reed Hastings, who is the founder of Netflix, donated, I think, gosh, I hope I don't get this number wrong, I think around $40 million to the Kamala Harris campaign, and came out very proud about that. And on Monday or on Tuesday, Netflix's stock tanked. So people are just pulling out, or no, maybe last week they started pulling out. And that's how it has to be, because that is the way to get control is the financial stuff. People, these companies and organizations really run on bottom line. They do. And if you want to participate in a certain thing, sure, pay for it. But if you really want change, it's where their bottom line is. That's what they care about.
Thank you, Terri. Thank you for your story. It's very interesting. We'll have this on joehoff.com as part of the Underdog Report.